I am Abigail Flores, and I am the lead military therapist on the Victory Unit.
Gotcha.
So I always wanted to be a doctor, and then when I went into college, I had a couple of friends who really struggled with substance use and suicide, and that sort of ignited the fire to go into mental health and psychology.
Yeah.
And then my stepfather's in the military, so I've always had a really big passion for working with military. And so now I'm here, and I get to do a little bit of both. It was not at all what I thought it was gonna be, and I got hired here, I think, as an adolescent therapist, and now I'm doing military, and I couldn't have imagined it going any other way. The opportunity was, they had an opening on the military side, and they asked me, and I was so nervous, because it's such a challenge doing like that kind of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I don't know, and then I went, and man, it's been the best opportunity. I've been there for 2 years now. I was working with an adolescent female. She was a very strong personality, and her and I butted heads initially, and I was having such a hard time. She has been probably like my most memorable patient. She was my first client in practicum, and she really sparked that like this is the field that I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
We worked on, childhood sexual trauma, working through a lot of like really intense abuse and neglect, and that was my first time interacting with that kind of client before. It was initially, she was, and of course, because I worked at a homeless shelter for adolescents.
Okay.
So she was in a hard time of her life, and seeing her, she had hope at the end of it. She was planning for future birthdays, and she was like getting ready for the future. She was applying for college, and she was excited and sober for the first time, and seeing that transition and seeing how motivated she was. Who knows where she's at now, but if it was just a little moment where she felt like the world wasn't totally over for her, was like the game changer.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, this is what I need to be doing. I run the sexual trauma programming. So 1 in 3 women and 1 in 40 men in the military will experience sexual trauma. I had always had a passion for that topic specifically, and that's why I worked with those adolescents. And so seeing them now, we have men and women in our trauma programming, and they come in obviously guarded and fearful and anxious and all the things, and seeing them like and facilitating that kind of growth over the 30 days or more that they're here, where they feel confident and empowered to start living their life for themselves and separating from their trauma and from the labels that society may be putting on them, and seeing how much courage they have. That's my favorite part of the whole thing. But seeing that, like, that's the passion right there, is the sexual trauma group, and because so many people are affected by it, but nobody wants to talk about it. It's everywhere, and so if there's anything, being able to play a role, and like we all know someone affected by it at some point in time, and so like getting to help these people and really their families understand themselves too, because and that's kind of the part of the military. My stepfather was in the military, and I see that perspective of it. That's what I grew up with, but getting to see the opposing perspective, and like the person that actually has to leave the home and has to go through all these things and then come back and be normal, and we get to help them kind of reintegrate back into day-to-day.
What are some fun facts or hobbies that help you unwind?
Yeah, working out and really honing in on physical health has been important.
Yeah.
Because we do work, we work a lot, and we put a lot of mental effort in, so anything I can do to just release.
Yeah.
So yoga, hiking, I love spending time with my family. I have a lot of family here in San Antonio, so that's how I recharge, so that I can show up on Monday and do what I gotta do. Where we say, we preach self-care. Every day you gotta work out, and you have to be all well-rounded, and then we go home and we don't do anything. And that's not okay, So I think if we're gonna preach it, we have to practice it. And so I can't go to work and be like, y'all need to be exercising, and you need to be breathing and practicing mindfulness, and I'm not practicing any of that.
Yeah.
So I think doing it on my own helps me implement that more into the practice. Especially in trauma groups, we do a lot of mindfulness activities and grounding activities, so they can work through the emotion that they're experiencing. Yeah, so we'll do like some guided meditations, guided visualizations, like especially for trauma, working through like visually exposing themselves to triggers and then calming themselves down whenever they're getting like emotionally amped up. We'll do more like guided visualization and stuff like that, and just breathing. We talk about really heavy topics, and it's at the start of their day, so I want them to be able to go into the next group feeling calm and ready to take on whatever's next. It's all these like unexpected triggers that they encounter that are unavoidable at the end of the day.
They really are.
Yeah, so learning how to be able to face them without it being so debilitating that you can't function. That's why the self-care stuff is so important, because it's hard to not, like, because you get to that place for a moment, you know, and
feel
then
it
having to
inside,
get out of
yeah.
it and separate a little bit to keep yourself safe and able to do the job effectively. Especially going through the trauma groups and stuff, something that, aside from the very typical answers of, you know, wanting to be empathetic and understand people, that's obviously really important. But I also think always learning and growing as a clinician is really important. So staying on top of different modalities. The military likes for us to use evidence-based, and so I want to be well-rounded in these evidence-based techniques and learn a lot about them. I think with our military unit, the thing that maybe this isn't more of a therapeutic skill to a degree, but they're away from home for 30 days, sometimes 2 months, 3 months. And it's hard to be away from your loved ones, to be away from your work, to be away from everything that really matters to you.
Of course, yeah.
And focus on yourself. And so I think myself and also our unit as a whole tries to make it a home away from home. We're pushing them to limits and challenging them and getting them uncomfortable. But I also want them to simultaneously feel safe in that space. So creating like a non-judgmental and caring environment to where they actually trust us with the information that they're sharing. And with their lives, like we're making sure that they can go back to their loved ones better than they were when they came. Doing ACT, DBT, cognitive processing therapy. ACT's been like our main modality for our group therapy program, and it's so structured, they love it. It makes sense to them. It's like broken down so easy, and so they take to it so well. So even being super well-rounded in ACT has been really helpful, and constantly learning more about how to implement that with them so that they understand it better. I guess the unique part about my job is I don't just do an individual session with them and then see them in 2 weeks. I see them all day long, Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturdays. And so we're sitting there, we get the unique opportunity to sort of like implement in random times of the day. So the other day, I was sitting and I was doing some work at the nurse's station. This patient comes out of group and he goes, I don't feel like talking about this topic today. Can I just sit out here? And someone had said that's fine because he was feeling some intense emotions. But then he came to the nurse's station and he wanted to chit chat and socialize. And that was an opportunity of, hey, we're avoiding and we need to go back into group, right? And like being able to catch them in the moments, whereas when they're out and about in the real world, they don't have anyone kind of consistently implementing
like
those
a coach.
techniques.
Like
So it's cool to be able to use it in just outside of just a group setting. And that's kind of the way that we run the unit is we have rapport with these patients because we build such a trusting environment with them. So we can challenge them. And that's kind of the point is you're not supposed to be comfortable this whole time, but I want you to feel comfortable enough to get uncomfortable.